Dave Weissglass.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah, happy
You
to be
sexy
here.
motherfucker. Good to have you.
Dude, happy to be here. This is fun. This is good.
Yeah, how you been?
I've been all right. It's fun always chatting with you at the mic scene and shit. Good to do it with a fucking microphone. That's
Yeah,
cool.
man.
I feel legit. I was just talking. I was like, so official.
Yeah.
I've been like on my friend's podcast. It's just like iPhone. It's like that's the podcast setup.
Yeah. I'm
Which
trying
nothing wrong with that, but
No, but like I'm trying to do like a decent quality product to start with as best as I can. Like, obviously this is very amateur, but
it's working. It's working. Also, I like the view. They can't see, but we got a view of the street. This is like street life right in front.
Yeah, man, you'll be amazed the amount of people that will just stare through the window the whole time. And
Yeah,
yesterday I did 2 sessions in the studio yesterday, and like 3 people came in. They're like, "What's your podcast? I want to look it up."
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
So,
That's how it starts.
Yeah. So what's going on, brother?
What is going on? Not much, man. I hosted a show last night. Just came from a mic, and here I am.
What show did you host?
It was a Buddha one. It
Nice.
was at St. Mark's. It was raining, and it was not very packed. A little bit lower energy, but it was fun to host. I haven't been hosting much. Like I host the mics, obviously.
Yeah.
But hosting shows, I really want to get more into. Because I don't know, it's kind of like my energy is a little bit peppier.
You're good
And-
energy. You're a great host.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're one of the best hosts getting around on the open mic scene at the moment.
Oh, thank you.
And I
very
mean
much.
that. You're very, very good.
I appreciate that. It means a lot. I mean, yeah, but hosting a mic obviously very different than a show. You know?
Yeah.
So it's funny. It's like hosting a show is not seen as like a desirable thing, you know, in like the comedy scene, and in large part, in like 90% of it's probably because like once you get to a level, I'm not there yet, but like once you get to a level where you have multiple spots a night, you can bounce around the city. You can go to different ones. If you're a host, you have to stay the whole time.
Gotcha.
But I like hosting. So like if no one else wants to take it, I'm like, hell yeah, let me do it. And it's fun.
It's a
for
skill.
me.
It's a skill. But also
Yeah.
there's a lot of like professional hosts that will just host.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, a lot of these guys, because they're very good at crowd work, but they don't have a lot of material, they're just crowd work comics. So hosting is their thing, but you have great material and you're good at hosting, so you're very diverse in that way, which is great.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, I my crowd work needs definitely a lot of work. But I think like crowd work is one of those things that like, it's funny when I started, I'm still starting, but you know, like first couple months, I was like trying at mics and stuff, the crowd work around. And I kind of realized, like, I think the crowd work, a lot of it just comes with time.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, you can practice crowd work. There's like, ways to practice it, get used to just being comfortable on stage. But, like, at a certain point with crowd work, like, it's not about being clever and, like, being really witty necessarily, although if you are, that's great. It's just, like, being able to just be yourself.
That's
when you
right.
talk to people. And, like, that is downstream of just being yourself on stage. Which, like, I'm not there yet, you know? Like, I've got a fine stage presence, I think, for where I am now. But, like, I'm still not totally relaxed in myself, you know, when I'm talking to someone. So, yeah, no, it's fun. I've got, you know, I'd like to think I've got all right material and, like, I can whip it out. But I don't know. I'm trying different things. Like, last night, I would, like, instead of starting up top with crowd work and then going into material, I did the material and then, like, went.
Yeah.
Like, use some crowd work within it.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
I've been doing that a bit on shows too.
Yeah.
Just trying to like, so say I've got a bit about, just for example, like I've got a bit about like seeing particular observations in New York City.
Right.
So I'll ask people in the crowd, "Oh, have you seen this thing?" And they say yes or no, and have that little interaction, and then move into the bit.
Yeah,
and that's fun.
Yeah, I haven't been doing a lot of that because for me personally, it's really difficult to like. And I think this for a lot of comics, I've been talking to my friends about it, is like being able to go from material to, you know, like just like, not even crowd work, but just presentness, whatever's going on around you, and then back to material is really hard. And like, because then it's very normal, I think, for a new comedian like myself to just be like, okay, when I'm doing my material, I'm in material mode. And like, it comes off like, you know, a little bit more performy, which is normal. And then, you know, you could do some crowd work and a casual conversation. Then you'll go back into material, and it's like people can sense that switch of like, oh, he was just casually talking to us, and now he's like back to acting out the material. You know, like it seems stilted, but I think that just comes with time too. So
yeah, I think so. Well, but for the time you've been doing it, you're killing.
Oh,
I mean it, dude.
That, but
I mean, I wouldn't have you here. I wouldn't like. I mean, I would, but like you're definitely leading the way. And I've told you this a few times. Your writing is, mwah.
Oh, thank
I
you,
fucking
dude.
love your
It
writing.
means a lot. It really does.
Yeah, you've worked hard though. It's obvious.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of funny. It's like the emotional aspect, the comedy of like you go through ups and downs of like you feeling like you're the shit sometimes. Like, man, I did like a bunch of mics this week. I kind of like got some new jokes here. I punched up old jokes. Like, I'm really working hard. And then you go through a week where it's like, man, I got some writer's block and I'm not delivering well. And that mic was kind of a waste because I fucked up that. Like, you know, like feeling like I'm the shit versus like I am shit.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just like so back and forth. But it means a lot to hear dudes like you who like are living and breathing comedy to like appreciate.
Thank you, man.
So that's nice, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So where are you from? Tell me about yourself. Are you from New York City?
No, I'm from New Jersey. So no one from New York would ever let me claim New York. I was
To me, that's the same thing, by the way.
which is so funny because like no one in New York would ever allow that.
Really?
No, I'm from Jersey. I'm like, and there's so many of it. Like, you know, the classic. Like I've got jokes about it of like I'm one of a million comics in New York, the white Jewish guy from like New Jersey who now lives in New York, trying to make it in stand up. Yeah, but I'm from New Jersey. Was there for I've raised in the same house for 18 years, never moved. And then for college, I went as far away as possible.
Wow.
I went to California.
Cool.
So I went to school in LA, lived there for about
What
6
school?
years. USC,
Okay.
University of Southern California.
How was that?
It was awesome. Most people know it for football.
Yeah, well, that's where I've heard of it.
American football.
Yeah. The shit football.
Yeah, all right. Honestly, dude, you know what's funny about that is like every 4 years when the Olympics come on, I'm like, this is the year I'm gonna learn how rugby makes sense. Like I'm gonna do it this year, guys. I'm gonna emerge from this Olympics understanding rugby, and it never happens.
It's a good sport. I like it. I think it's for me. It's a bit more entertaining to watch because I find American football a little slow.
I get that because they have a break in the action.
So many breaks. It's like,
which is funny because like in Aussie rules and in rugby, they've got breaks too, but they're quick.
They're quick.
They're just like, all right, they blow the whistle and they just go right. I think that's why it's so confusing for me as an American because I'm like, hold on, I thought they had to reset things. I thought I could wrap my head around this.
Yeah.
Like let me get my head above water before you start the next play, dude. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what is going on with between the legs and that's the craziest part when they
lift them up.
I'm like, what is happening? But anyway, digress. USC's like kind of known for football, so like most people know it there. I loved it just because like I'm from New Jersey, and all of a sudden I'm in Los Angeles, which is like, you know, stars in your eyes. It's like, oh, the palm trees, LA, like all the stories you hear. But then you get there and you're like, oh, it's just another city.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I liked it so much I stayed 5 years.
Wow.
I stayed next year. I got my master's.
And what were you studying?
Urban planning, city planning. Yeah. Then I was there for like another year after I graduated working. Then I went up to San Francisco, was there for 5 years.
Oh, what was San Fran like?
New York. San Fran, I loved when I was there. And then I have been a bit disillusioned since I left. Like my eyes been open to a little bit. It's weird because like I worked for the government there. I work for the government here. But I worked for like the government there. And the people I worked with were awesome. The way like the structures we were working within were not, and like in a way that I kind of like opened my eyes to after I left, and I'm like, ooh,
what do you mean?
It's hard to. I mean, I work in like city planning, and so like San Francisco is kind of known as like, obviously it's got like incredibly high housing prices, as we do in New York, but like all credit to San Francisco, it's not New York. You're not getting what you pay for.
Yeah, gotcha.
Not that you're necessarily getting that in New York, you know, with the exorbitant prices we pay, but it's just like they don't. San Francisco is like they don't change things. It's like they've got things as they are, and they like to keep it as it is. And the answer to a lot of questions about how are we going to make this bold policy, or how are we going to actually build what people need to be built, whether it's like housing or what 90% of it is housing, or like some other service. And it's like let's be very, very, very cautious about building. And meanwhile, it's like people are paying $4,000 for a month, you know, like so I'm not optimistic about San Francisco changing things the way they need to. But it is like a beautiful city. So when I was there, I really liked it. I was a tour guide to San Francisco. That's how much I loved it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was a walking tour guide. That was the way that I was able to like be really into like before I was doing stand up, like just talking.
Yeah.
You know, like we all like stand up is how we're scratching that itch, but the itch is not stand up. The itch is like we want to talk. We
Yeah.
want to tell our story, we want to entertain maybe. And like being a tour guide was my way of like kind of doing that without doing stand up, you know?
How did you like learn enough history about the city to be able to do a job like that? Because I've done a lot of walking tours. I've done a lot of traveling. And one of the
Yeah.
things I enjoy doing is when I go to a new city, I like doing a walking tour because it's a great way to
too.
learn about a city.
Oh, me too. I'm such a nerd with walking tour shit. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun. They've got a whole organization. I'll give my nothing against San Francisco. I know I was just talking shit about it, but if you go to San Francisco, to anyone listening to this, take one of the free. I gave free walking tours. I was a volunteer. I didn't get paid.
You do get tips though sometimes, don't you?
No, so dude, the way that it worked when I was there, this is actually kind of hilarious. So it was run through the San Francisco Public Library.
Okay.
So they had all the resources to teach you stuff. So that's like they'll give you a few months to teach you how to give the tour. There's other tour guides who teach you stuff.
And you'll jump in a few other people's tours and kind of
Exactly. And they've got a bunch of different like 60 different tours. It's not just like San Francisco tour. It's like this neighborhood, that neighborhood, architecture, this period of history. It's like you can get really specific with it, and they're all free. They're just donation based. And what they would do is at the end of our tours, we'd pass around an envelope for people to like put in however much they wanted, if they wanted. And it was an honor system. I don't know if this is still how they do it, but it was an honor system where we, the tour guides, would take the cash and then we would write a check for that amount to the organization. Because like the organization was like 80% donations based. Like they got some public funding, but not nearly enough. So like the rule was you're a volunteer tour guide. You get no tips. You get nothing. You're doing it just for the love of the game.
Wow.
So it was an honor system. So people definitely like stole a couple bucks here, but
Of course.
I didn't really care. I just did it for fun. Yeah.
They should have given you a little tip.
They should have, for sure.
Yeah.
But it was like it was like 90% like really old retirees who just like wanted something to do in their spare time.
Gotcha.
They liked hanging out with people, you know.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cute in that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
Did you learn a lot about the city?
Yeah, I learned a ton. That's like so again, I have like an urban planning background. That's the way that I like feel connected to a city or to a place is like learn about the history of how it became developed. Like because when I moved to San Francisco, I was 25. It was my first time moving to a new city, not for college. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was born and raised in the same house, in the same room of the same house for 18 years.
Wow.
And then when I went to LA, I went there for school. And so when you go there, you're living in dorms. It's not like you're moving to a new city.
Yeah.
You know, it's like different.
Were you in dorms the whole time in university?
No, I was in dorms the first year. And then I lived in the fraternity house for the next 2 years, and then in some off-campus house for last year. That was like relatively normal at USC. But it was still like you're in the college environment. It's not like you're like in the city.
Yeah.
Or like experiencing the city in that way. But then I moved to San Francisco, and it's like, all right, you're just an adult in a new city now. You know, there's no like structure set up. It's not like whatever. And I was going through a breakup, a new job I wasn't sure about. It was tough. And I was like, okay, the way that I can like feel like I'm at home in this like kind of weird period is to learn about San Francisco. And so like I read a lot of books and everything and got really into it. And so I was super into San Francisco. And then since I've left, I'm like, I'm not sure about San Francisco.
I've heard they've got a few social problems at the moment.
Yeah, I think whether the social problems are there or whether they're downstream of the housing and economic problems, you know, yeah, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, like I've heard that there's I haven't read the book, but there's a book called San Francisco.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
But he sort of goes on about like a lot of the homeless problems and the crime and stuff that's in that city.
Yeah, I haven't read that one. I've heard about it. And I want to be like careful about how I'm saying it too, because I think there's a lot of people who like are critical of San Francisco, but from a very like right-wing perspective.
Gotcha.
You know, where it's like, man, San Francisco is falling apart because of, I don't know, diversity and woke mind virus. And I'm like, that's a boogeyman. You know, that's not what's wrong with San Francisco. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And so I think I've heard that the San Francisco author is like a little bit of that.
Gotcha.
But I haven't read the book.
No, me neither.
So, yeah.
Who the fuck? So then after San Francisco, you were there, what, for 5 years?
Ish, yeah.
And then you moved back to the city.
Yeah, or moved to the city.
To the city.
New York,
Yeah,
no one ever let me
yeah.
get away. But it's kind of funny because New York, again, I'm an urban planner. Like I've always been a city guy, but like I never actually lived in New York, but it was the city I knew growing up. Like I'm living central New Jersey, like, you know, vertically. And there's like New Jersey is like split up into like the Philly, New Jersey people and the New York, New Jersey people. And it's always like, what sports fans are you a fan of? You know, are you a Philly person like in South Jersey and West Jersey, or it was no? And the good test for me is like, if you were a kid living in wherever you were in New Jersey, and someone said, "Hey, I'm going to the city tonight," people know which one you're talking.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I was New York. If anyone ever said, "I'm going to the city tonight" in my town, it was like, "Oh, you're going to New York."
Gotcha.
So I was there a lot. I was always in New York because my parents met here. They lived here for years. They loved it. I loved it. Our family went in, but I never actually lived in the city until I was like 30. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was it like moving here finally at 30 years old after all that?
Oh, it was awesome. I'm like, it's so great. Like people ask me about like, oh, you've lived in LA and San Francisco and New York, like all very large or like at least culturally important cities. And I'm like, I love my time in LA. I love my time in San Francisco, but like, and I'm nostalgic about it. You know, like I have nice memories from both places, but it's like, I never wish that I was there instead of here.
Gotcha.
I'm so glad I'm in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, and also because I'm from Jersey, like my family is close by here. A lot of my childhood friends that I've been able to like, not reconnect with, I stayed friends with them, but like, you know, kind of like was reconnected with. So I had like, I like landed in New York and automatically had a bigger social circle than I had in San Francisco just by virtue of like how I grew up near New York.
Wow.
Yeah. Because people from New Jersey, like so many of them end up in New York City in their 20s and 30s, you know?
Well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to just staying in the burbs in Jersey, you know?
Yeah. So so then when did you start getting into comedy?
There's a short answer and a long one. I'll try to find a medium answer.
Yeah, whatever. We got time, bro.
Yeah. I've wanted to do comedy like as long as I can remember.
Wow.
Which like now thinking about it, it almost upsets me that it took me so long to actually formally start. But it's like ever since I was like a kid, like there are stories my parents would tell of like when people asked me what I want to be when I grew up when I was like 4, I said stand-up comedian just because like I like making people laugh. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was really into stand up growing up. Like even as a teenager, whatever. Like I have a joke about it, but it is true that my dad got me into stand up because we both listened to Bill Cosby albums. Like it is a joke, but it is legitimate. That is true. Like my dad and I have these inside jokes about like old Bill Cosby bits from the '60s. Little did we know. But yeah, so I was really into stand up and all kinds of different stand up in the aughts and stuff. And then I went to college. I did like one open mic night just at the cafe, but it was like an open mic for everyone, like poetry, songwriting. And then I got up there and I was like, I'm going to tell some jokes. And everyone's like, oh, okay.
How was it?
It was fine. I got a couple chuckles, I think.
Yeah.
I'm still tight with a lot of friends that saw me at the time. But I got that and I was like, okay, it's not like I got hooked onto it at that point, but I was like, I'm glad I did it. We'll see. Maybe another time I'll try again. Then a couple years later, I moved to San Francisco. I was 25 and I took a stand-up class in San Francisco. And it was like more to make friends, you know, new city and just like kind of, you know, meet people and doing so in a thing that I kind of liked. I wasn't really planning to like really stick with it. Did a couple open mics there. Didn't really have the balls to keep going when I bombed.
It hurt.
Yeah, well, not that it doesn't now, but it's like it was more of a thing that it hurt, and again, I hadn't been bitten by the thing. It just wasn't like I was like, okay, I'm glad I did that, but it's not like I loved it, you know. And then last a year and a half ago ish, like summer 2023, I don't know, it was just like a weird period in my life where I was like, I'm not really doing anything, you know. I go to work, I come home, I get high, I watch TV, and then I go to bed. Which, no judgment, great way to live, honestly. Who might, you know, that's fine. But
I've lived many years like that.
Yeah, exactly. But like for me, it was like, something is different. Also, that's around, not to bring a damper, but that is around where my mom died. And I've never made a conscious connection between my mom dying and me trying stand-up, but I'm sure there's something beneath the surface there. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I went to an open mic just to watch, just to be like, all right, could I do that? And then it's an open mic, so I saw everyone bomb, and I was like, I could do that.
Yeah.
And I've been writing notes in my phone for years of like different ideas, blah, blah, blah. And then I went to an open mic. I actually got laughs at my first one. It was an easy room. And then the next like 8 I bombed. And at that point I was like, okay, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
So it sucks because it's funny. I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I started when I was 19 or 20, like so many of the dudes and women that we know.
They've got such an advantage. Don't
I know.
they?
And then because like 10 years in, you're still barely 30 or you're just over 30. But at the same time, it's like everyone moves their own pace. You know? Like I did it before, I didn't get bit, and now I'm like I need to do it. You know.
Also, there's an advantage to having life experience.
Well, we've talked about this a little. Yeah. How old are you? You're 35. Yeah. And so you started pretty recently as well.
Yeah,
right?
I've got a similar story to you. Like I did a bit of it at home. I did it. I think it was like 3 years ago. I for about a year I did like an open mic every month.
Yeah.
And so I just got a taste for it.
Dipping your toe into
But I bombed nearly every single one of it.
Of course,
I sucked. The first time I did was a course, and I actually did all right.
Oh, what?
I did a course.
Oh, right.
And then in Australia.
Yeah.
And then it was like two group sessions and then a show. And then so the show went really well.
Only 2 sessions?
Yeah.
Wow, that's.
But I was so panicky, man. I was so nervous.
Of course.
The night before I went up, I cried.
Yeah.
I was so nervous.
Oh, good for you,
dude.
Good for you. That's like, but that's like dedication, dude. That's awesome. It's funny. I'm a big NBA fan. I'm a big basketball fan, and there's like stories of like famous Bill Russell. You know Bill Russell?
Mm-hmm.
He's like one of the greatest players ever, and he would throw up before every game.
Wow.
Like that, or at least that's an urban tale. I don't know if it's true, but it's like he would throw up before every game. So much so that one time he didn't throw up, and his teammates were like, "Bill, go throw up right now."
Yeah, we want to win.
Yeah, this is our good luck charm.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to be nervous. That's the fun of it.
Yeah.
In a sense, you know.
But I did so I did like an open mic once a month for like a year, gained no traction, and I didn't realize. I felt and thought that you had to write a new material every single time. So every single time for 12 months, I did a new 5 minutes, bombed it.
Yeah.
And then
you wouldn't revisit it.
And then I would never revisit it, never touch it again, wrote another, bombed, wrote another, bombed. It was just and then I ended up going traveling, and life took me in a different direction for a while. And then when I came back in June, that's when I revisited again.
Yeah.
I've said this a million times. Like I did as many open mics in my first week here as what I did in home over a year.
So were you expecting to like dive this deep into the comedy scene here? Like, or were you expecting to just kind of do what you were doing in Australia, of like dip my toe in, see what happens?
Deep.
You knew.
I knew.
You were like, when I get to New York, I'm gonna fucking.
Yeah, I knew. The first time I did comedy was that show that I was just talking about. My now wife was there, and when we were in the taxi home, I said to her, "This is what I want to do for the rest of my life."
Yeah.
I knew.
And that was your Australian show?
That was in Australia. So
Nice.
I knew
Yeah.
the seed was there. I was hooked instantly.
Right.
But I just didn't know anything. The community is very different at home. I never really fit in there, and I didn't do it enough to like get involved with anyone.
And where in Australia were you?
Brisbane.
Brisbane. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what the scene is like in Brisbane compared to other cities in Australia.
If you could do 2 open mics a week in Brisbane, you're lucky.
Oh yeah. It's fun. I mean,
there's nothing there.
We're so lucky we're in New York, right? Because it's like, I mean, you talk to other people. I saw you have Michael Fleming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Michael.
Yeah.
He was in Charleston. He's like, there's like 2, maybe 3 open mics,
and you can't get good.
What I mean,
you can.
Yeah,
but I can't.
You just gotta like do a lot of writing, and like it just takes time. It's just difficult, and like a lot of comics, it's difficult. It's funny because like I've thought about that too. Have you thought about that since you started? Of like, okay, what's it like being a tiny fish in a massive ocean like we are now versus what if you started in, I don't know, St. Louis or something? You know, like being a tiny fish in a small-ish pond. Like what would be better?
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm in New York.
Me too. I think it's better to be a small fish in a huge pond.
And you're gonna be small for longer. Like I feel like you could, you know, like. Michael said it himself, I think. I keep going back to him, but there's a lot of other dudes and ladies as well started in smaller places of like, you can like open for headliners pretty quickly. Like if you just like work at the open mics, even if there's only 3 a week. But in New York, obviously there's just like a larger pool.
Yeah.
So you have a lot to compete with, but it's just like, the standard for good comedy is so much higher in New York.
So high.
Like it really requires you to like write your ass off to like go to all the open mics, stuff like that.
Well, I've said this a few times on the podcast. I had a friend that visited from Brisbane, and she came to a couple of open mics with me, and she was just blown away with the talent here. She was like,
really?
It's completely different.
Is she a comedian?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
She's just like, everyone here is so good.
There was some Australian woman at Black Cat a couple weeks ago. But I don't think you were there, so I guess it was not who you were talking about. Did she perform with you at some of the open mics?
But this was months and months ago.
Oh, it was months ago. Yeah,
so,
never mind. Yeah, dude, it's funny. I haven't really performed in a lot of places outside of New York. I've been like toying with the idea of like with some friends of like let's do a road trip to like Boston for a weekend. Just hit all the mics, see how they go. See how your material works outside of the city.
Yeah.
But I know in a lot of places like just the standards a little lower.
Yeah.
And here it's like you can have some jokes that honestly would crush in a lot of other places, and New York's just like it's tough.
And everyone is just so fucking good.
Yeah, there's so many good comics here.
Like when you go to like Black Cat on a mic and it's like everyone's on fire, you're like,
Yeah, dude.
I'm
Yeah,
nobody.
yeah.
I suck.
I know. It
makes you want to be better. You have to get better, otherwise you're just gonna sink. Like you have to.
You go home from a mic like that where it's filled with really good people, you bomb, and then you go home and it's like, all right, well now I'm gonna write.
Yeah.
It's like I gotta write because you've already made the decision you're hooked on comedy. It's like it's not like I'm gonna quit like this. I love doing it, but it's like all right, here's what it takes to get better.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be writing now, and you're gonna get home and write, and those jokes are gonna be shitty. And then the same thing's gonna happen next week, and over, and then before you know it, hopefully 5 years in, you start writing good.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's funny. Like I'm happy with where I'm at, being a year and a half in, but like I'm not happy with where I'm at overall. You know?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Not even close to it.
But I will say, and I've said this just before, but your writing is very good. You're
very much,
accelerated in your writing. You've picked it up very well, and I've noticed with you. I've said this to you before. You've got like a bit of a formula, and it kind of works every fucking time. You're just the way that you break down a joke. You break it down almost professionally. Like there's not a lot of difference between the way you're writing jokes and people at the cellar. And I know that's a big call, but I do really mean that. Your writing is excellent.
I appreciate that. It's the funniest thing because like. Yeah, I think some of my writing I think is good, some of it's not so good, but like there is a formula to the writing. I mean, there's a formula to jokes overall, right? It's like it's not like we're reinventing the wheel, right? It's like misdirections have existed for decades, you know, like all like different joke formulas. There's so many comics, like, but then you know what the rules are, and then you can break them. But that's the thing is like. I think I do have a formula to them, and you know whether it's the same formula as the seller, I don't know, depends on the person, but like. There is something to be said for like being different and unique. Yeah. And so I think that's where I'm trying to like see like, okay, where can I feel comfortable like doing something really out of left field, you know, when you're on stage.
You're unique because you relate everything back to yourself. That's what's unique. It's always your point of view and it's your story. So even if your some formulas are generic, some are not. You are just unique in your own way because you're very truthful and honest about yourself. And you are very good at breaking down what's going on within yourself and what's going on in your life.
Yeah. I see what you mean then, the content of it. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think that was something like early on in comedy, because that's what they say is like you speak about you.
Yeah.
Because the audience can tell when you're lying. You know what I mean? Unless you're doing a character, you're doing a Jeselnik thing or whatever, where none of that's real. But it's like, people can tell.
Yeah. People, they like... you hear this a lot.
Especially in New York, right? Good audiences, they're like smart. That's why the standard's so high, right?
But people they want to know who you are. Like they want, and it's true. Like the best comics are like when you get off stage, you're like, I can't understand who that guy is.
Dude. It's so funny. I think there's, who was I talking to? I forget who I was talking about. I think it was like a feedback mic I went to a couple weeks ago or something. And they were talking about some story of like being in jail for heroin, like something in their past.
Wow.
And then they were like talking, someone was giving feedback like, oh, I wanted more of that story. And he's like, yeah, I don't know how relatable it is. And it's like, you don't necessarily need to be relatable.
No.
You just need to be a person where I think Nate Bargatze said this on a podcast once. You just got to be able to get it across where people can look at you and be like, I can see that person going through that. Yeah. Like even if I have no idea what it's like, I could see them going through that weird situation, just given that I know their persona, their mannerisms,
Yeah.
But no, that was something like early on in comedy there. I was like, all right, I'm gonna stop writing jokes I think people would find funny and just write about stuff that's actually happening, because then it makes it easier to write jokes.
Right.
Because then you could like actually just bring your like how you felt at that moment when that happened to you.
Yeah. So where do you get your inspiration from? and what is a part of your writing process? Like break it down to me how an idea blossoms to a bit on a stage.
Yeah, good question. It's funny because I'm still like I think I need to reevaluate my writing process because it's honestly really disjointed right now.
Everyone's changes as well.
Yeah,
people.
I talk to my friends all the time. I'm like, I wonder what my stage presence is going to be in 5 years. You know, it's probably going to be nothing like this now.
I had a guy. I got a friend who wants to start comedy. He's doing a course next month, and he's like, I'm really worried about my like persona on stage and how I'm gonna look. And I'm like, you don't even gonna know what that is for years. Don't even worry about that. Don't worry about how you're gonna be on stage. Just it's irrelevant.
And it's almost like it's not. It's like a bit comforting, right? Where it's like comedy is always like, oh, you got to work your butt off. You got to work your butt off, which is like, but that means more than just being in the scene. You can go to a mic every night for the social aspect, but like, if you're not like writing before and after it, if you're not like getting technical about it, or not even technical, but if you're not like really actually looking at comedy as a whole thing instead of just performing, it's like, oh, that's hard. But it's comforting to like, I think Gary Goldman had one of these like tips that was just like, he used to tell himself all the time, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Just like, and so I write that like at home on my whiteboard all the time. Like, you could be hard on yourself sometimes. I feel like we all are, are tough on ourselves, but it's like, you're a year and a half in, like you're exactly where you're supposed to be, you know? Like
that's
it's okay.
what I've started.
And if you feel like you're not, then maybe, you know, you need to work a little harder. But so I've like look at that and be like, all right, am I working as hard as I could be, or am I working as smart as I could be, or something like that? But then sometimes it's like, oh yeah, all right, I didn't have a great show or a great spot, or those jokes bombed that I thought might be good, but that's all part of it.
Yeah,
that's where I'm supposed to be right now. It's not like I'm an 8-year comic who should be crushing it. You know, like
no.
Yeah.
That's what I'm coming to terms with too, because I tend to be and have been throughout my life very harsh on myself. I'm my own worst critic, and we all are.
Yeah.
But I've started to really reason with myself a lot more logically. Like, hey man, this is just where I'm at. Like, I'm not a professional comedian. I'm not going to be writing the best shit. I'm just where I'm at, and where I'm at's good. I'm working hard, and I'm getting better. So what more can you ask for? It's just a natural, slow progression. Whoever thinks they're going to come into comedy and be fucking getting a Netflix special in 1 year, you're fucking delusional. Like, it's just, and why would you want to be? Like, it's
That's
a skill.
Good point.
And this is a learnt skill. You learn this. This isn't something that you're born with. I mean, for some people maybe, but I don't think so. I think it's a learned skill that you can learn just like anything else, and you get better with reps and time.
I mean, I say the same thing. Like, isn't it funny? You talk to like people who are non-comics, and you're like, "Oh, I'm doing it a year and a half, 2 years," and they're like, "Whoa, that's a long time." It's like, no, it's not.
No,
it's like that's like the first year of comedy is just learning how to hold a microphone, basically, without being weird about it. Like, it's so
getting rid of the nerves is a big thing too.
Which even that takes like I've identified my nervous tics, and I hate it whenever I listen back to my stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm a year and a half in. Shouldn't I be done with that by now? And then I'm like, nope, that's where you're supposed to be. That's okay.
Yeah.
I've gotten like better at some of my tics, but there's still some of them that I'm like, dude, just like have the confidence throughout. But it takes time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's all part of the process. And
there are some comics who start out that I'm like, whoa.
Oh yeah.
There's something I'll name drop here, dude. There's like fucking I think I was at one of her first open mics, and she was pretty funny already. Do you know Valeria Volpe?
No.
Oh God, she's so funny. She's from Moldova. She's super deadpan. She's got this like Eastern European accent. She's like a year, maybe a year and a half in. She is so funny.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll show you afterwards. There's a million others, I'm sure, but I'm just like, oh my God.
There's some young guys like James Patrick, like he's only 3 or 4 months in or whatever. And
he's
he's 21 years old. I'm like, damn, man.
I know.
You keep going, you're going to be a fucking murderer.
I know, man.
It's so good to see people grow too, like to see the progression of people, like how you're like, especially if you don't see someone for a few months and you see them again and they're like holding their own, you're like, wow.
And
he
honestly,
picks that up quick.
And it's just weird. It's funny. I talked to my non-comedy friends about it too, and because about like what it's like in the amateur scene and just going through the open mic, struggle circuit or whatever. And it's funny because it's like we love hanging out with each other. Like it's a great sense of community. but there is competition.
Of course.
Like, it's like, dude, I'm with you here right now. Like, I would love to look back in 10, 15 years and you and I are both just crushing as pros, but
fuck yeah.
I want to be better than you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, fuck yeah, I want to be better. Like,
of course.
yeah, that'd be the idea. But it's
Yeah.
like, you come back and you'd be like, man, he's like, he or she really is like beefed up in the last few months. And it's like, have I beefed up as much as I have in the last few months? Ooh.
Another thing though is
It's like that good pressure.
of course,
Good pressure.
Well,
yeah.
you need that because we're all procrastinators. We're all idiots. So you need that. Like I need the pressure. Like I was the kid growing up that I would do my assignment the night before. When I really felt that anxiety, that's when I would perform. And so the pressure of seeing people good around me is what's making me work.
Dude,
it's what's making me do this and like really push this out and try and do a good job with this. It's like trying to be. I'm like,
100%.
all right, I've just got to do the best I can. But to segue from it's sort of the same point. Like, yeah, I want to be as good as I can. Like, I want to be the best person in the room one day. But also, it's also subjective.
Yeah.
So your point of view is never going to be the same as my point of view. And there's people that are going to find your point of view funnier than my point of view and vice versa.
Yeah.
So it is realistic, but it's also like you have to be like, all right, well, I'm me. I'm just me. I can't change that. It is what it is.
Right. And that's the weird part. That's like a funny thing with me personally. And I'm curious about you too, is like before, like think outside of comedy, like before you started doing comedy, before you were ever thinking about comedy, right? Or, something reasonable within that. Like what kind of humor you like, right? Is it dirty? Is it clean? Is it like one-liner humor? Is it like stories? Is it things that comment on society or stuff like that? Sarcasm?
Yeah, that would have been my big thing.
Because that's what they say too, is like you want to try to be your favorite comic.
Yeah.
Which even the pros usually don't adhere to that, but it's a goal, right? You don't want to try to be a comic that you wouldn't like because then it's not honest to you and what makes you laugh. And that's like the whole thing of like new comics, myself included, a lot of times they'll tell jokes they think other people will find funny. Like they'll write a thing and be like, oh, people would probably like that. It's like, no, do you think it's funny?
Yeah.
And with me, it's like, I like every type of humor. I like dirty jokes. I like clean jokes. I like long, rambling, weird jokes like Gary Goldman or Josh Johnson. I like short, choppy jokes. I like really out of left field, like physical humor, like a Rory Scovel, and I like deadpan humor.
Yeah.
Like, I like it all. So it's like I need to figure out, which again will take years, like what is my persona, what jokes I don't even know yet.
Yeah.
You know? Who knows? But part of the process.
They reckon it takes a while to figure out your persona,
Yeah.
which is a weird thing.
Yeah, I think for a while I was like so hard on myself, like, all right, figure this out, work on that. Okay, we need to really figure out your persona. And it's like, it'll kind of come out in the wash probably. You know?
Yeah. I think
Just keep writing.
the more you develop, you're gonna get it. But
I hope.
there's also going, like you said like we all want to be like our favorite comic. I've noticed I'm a little different in this way, and I don't know about you. Like I don't really watch a lot of comedy aside from when I'm at comedy.
Yeah.
I don't really watch Netflix specials. I never ever thought of myself even doing comedy until I was like 30.
That's a lot of people. Yeah.
I'm not like a big studier of the art, which I probably should be. A lot of people say I should be, but I just kind of stay in my own lane a little bit. I don't know if that's the right or wrong way. I probably should watch a bit more Netflix specials just to like learn, because I'm sure because you can learn from everything and everyone. But I have noticed there's some people that are like that really do emulate professional comedians that are already out there, and then I wonder, will that come back to bite you in the future because you haven't developed your own style? I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything. It's just an interesting thought.
I don't know either. And I'm glad you brought that up. That's so funny because like I've been thinking about it. Because for me, again, I'm so new to comedy and I do watch a lot of comedy. And I don't watch it studiously. It's not like I'm taking notes. I just like comedy. And yeah, I'm like, in my head, I take some notes about their style and shit like that. But like, it's not like I'm taking it that seriously. But it is very funny. I like kind of look in the mirror sometimes and chuckle because like a lot of times when I go to an open mic and I try jokes in this style or that style, it's just whoever special I watched last night. You know,
yeah.
I'll go to like I'll watch again. I was name dropping because I've watched a lot of him recently. I like Rory Scovel. Who, do you know Rory Scovel?
I don't.
Yeah, look him up. He's so weird. He's actually not the best like joke. He's a pro, so who am I to say anything? Way better than me in every aspect of comedy, obviously. But like his joke writing is not as incisive as a lot of other pro comics, but he's just goofy and comfortable on stage. He's like a 40-year-old kid. He's very like act outy and performy, but not in a corny way, or like a corny way, but he owns it. And so like then I'll like go to the cellar and just get I'll go to like Black Hat or some mic and just get weird with it, and then like a week later I'll watch Sam Morril's special and just have very set up punchline classic. I'm like, all right, well let's see what sticks. I guess I don't know.
We're so lucky though we have all this at our fingertips.
Yeah,
because that is like. It's such a good point to reference off. You really do. You really can learn so much from other people.
Oh yeah.
So if you do really want to study the art and like I personally just don't watch specials because I just don't watch any TV.
Yeah.
I just never have been that sort of person. I don't watch movies. I don't watch anything.
Yeah.
I'm just not that kind of person. But I learned from being and watching comedy in real life. A lot of my ideas or like I get a lot of insights within my own style or writing from watching. Like something that someone will say will ignite a thought in my mind. I'm like, okay, I got to write this down. It's nothing to do with what they say, but it just
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Sorry, I digress so much from the original question of what's your writing style.
We're good.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Well, it's good. So that's the thing. It's like I don't really have a set up of my writing style. It's just like whenever, like I have targets of like, all right, write this many hours per week, and I've got
So
like,
you do,
yeah. So I'm like have my life somewhat organized.
Talk me through that. Like, do you get up in the morning and write? Do you?
No. So it's more like. So this is actually So my therapist, who's I was about to say new, but he's been like a year and a half of there. Like I got a new therapist like actually right as I was starting comedy, which is convenient. And he's been like half therapist and half like life coach organization guy. Like he's really good because I'm not. Again, before I was doing comedy, I wasn't really that organized in my life because I didn't need to be. I went to work, I came home, and that was that. I'd hang out with my friends. Okay, it was like easy to organize my life. I was single, I had no kids.
Yeah,
easy. And then I was like, all right, now I gotta get my shit in order. And so like he helped me like I've got like monthly goals of like get on stage X number of times, write X number of hours or good sessions at least, like. And then in addition to my other goals of like, I don't really go to the gym anymore because I'm doing too much comedy and also I hate working out. But like at least X number of days with 10,000 steps, like you do other things or eating healthy because I don't eat very healthy. And then like I've got weekly goals that add to that. And then I on Sunday nights, I set out my weekly schedule of like, all right, these are the mics I'm hitting this day. This day I'm not doing comedy. I don't know, I have a date or I'm hanging out with my friends or doing this or whatever. And that's been helpful for me because I'm like not in my nature like an organized person. And as for writing, it's like I've got weekly goals, and then I just make sure like to keep track of them throughout the week. A lot of times I'll come home from a mic and write a little bit.
You handwrite, you type.
Where did I read this tip? I think it was a Gary Goldman tip of like switching it up. I'm on my computer. It's very fun. When we were at Eastville the other week, people will make fun of me sometimes, like playfully, like, what are you writing, like a fucking work, like staff report or something? Because I use OneNote. Shout out OneNote. I use OneNote to organize my jokes into like, okay, new ideas that aren't fleshed out, ready for an open mic, needs work after the open mic, or like, oh, it's got legs, into different categories. And then I just kind of, now I'll revisit them and stuff. And a lot of like ideas I write down, they're not even remotely funny. I think that's the one thing I'm trying to challenge myself to do more of is journaling without trying to be funny.
Yes.
Right? Because that's the thing that I'll tell my friends this who have trouble writing as well. And a lot of times I don't even follow my own advice where they're like, oh, well, this interesting thing happened in my life. And it's not funny. A lot of times it's like very sad or something. And I'm like, write that down. They're like, why? It's not funny. I'm like, of course, nothing's funny in a vacuum. You just have an idea, something unique, and then maybe in 5 years or 5 months or 5 hours, you'll find it funny. So like a lot of times what I'm now realizing is I'm going through my phone, from ideas that I had before I did comedy, like 2017, 2018, just like random notes on my phone, be like, oh, all right, now that I've been doing comedy and I kind of get what a punchline is, like, let's see what's there. Maybe it's nothing, but maybe it's something.
Yeah.
Like, and so anyway, I use OneNote to keep track of everything, but I think it was a Gary Goldman tip of like, switch it up. I feel like sometimes when I'm handwriting at a bar or cafe or even before a mic, like for something about it that you can't explain gets your juices flowing in a different way.
Yeah.
So I was literally talking to my therapist and thinking like, I think for this 2025, I'm going to try to organize my week in terms of like writing style as well. Like, okay, this is going to be good for writing. Like, all right, I have an open mic that I host every week at X time. Maybe I'll get there 2 or 3 hours early and write.
Yeah.
Because I've done that. I found that over the last couple weeks has been helpful. Of like, I went to a bar for an open mic, and I was like, all right, well, at this open mic, I'm just still gonna punch up old stuff, so no pressure. But like, I just went through old notes, and I was like, oh, okay, I can. And then a couple of jokes that actually worked.
Perfect.
And it's like cool. So yeah, it's funny. It's like joke writing has gotten a little easier over time. I'm sure you've noticed the same thing.
Yeah, I'm starting to notice how to I'll write, and then I'm like, all right, I've got to cut this, pull this up here. That's where the laugh's going to be. So I've got to pull that to the end of the sentence and rearrange it. But I'm starting to pick up these nuances now. I do get frustrated with the process of writing jokes in the sense of like, I know I got to go a lot further with like doing comparisons and stuff like that, which I'm not really good at. I'm very much more like a premise punchline sort of comic at the moment. Although I can tell a good story as well. I've got a good storytelling mind. But,
you definitely do.
But yeah, where I want to get further is like what you're doing is like you've got the premise, but then you're just like stripping the fucking bones out of this thing. You're going bang, you're doing a comparison to this, you bring the comparison to that, and then you're closing it. I'm not there yet. I'm starting to think that way. And but it's I know where the gap is, and I'm starting to read it. And I'm starting to see that I'm just picking up little things.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm there yet either. I mean, neither of us are there yet. We're in the same boat,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a thing. I think that's what like I refer to it when I talk to my friends of like turn the wheel, right? It's like okay, you've got your joke, and it could be a simple setup punchline, and it's like okay. Turn the wheel again. Like, if that's true, then what else is true? Follow, like, this weird string of logic. Honestly, like, that's why I like writing sessions with other comics, you know? Like, you just hang out and just, like, bounce ideas off each other. It's because really what it comes down to is just ask a lot of questions. Right? Okay, you got a premise, right? I don't know. Insert premise here, whatever it may be. Okay, simple idea. Isn't it weird how the optometrist does this or this? I don't know. You know, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a joke about something weird that they do at the doctor.
Yeah.
Okay, turn the wheel again. Who is the doctor? Like, how did they learn how to do that? How, like, what kind of person wants to be a doctor and do that weird thing? When? Maybe 400 years in history, what were they doing when that problem was there? You know, like, and that's why I like writing with other people because they'll do that. They'll pepper you with questions and be like, oh, I didn't think of that. Like who, what, when, where, why, and just like turns the like gears just one more time.
Yeah.
Don't just stop at the first one. That's what I've challenged myself to do.
That's great.
But then at the other end of it, I also like have pulled myself back where recently over the last couple of weeks, I'm writing a lot more short, punchy setup punchline jokes because historically a lot of my jokes are at least like a minute long, which is good, but like you should have some quick ones. When
you're doing tight fives, you got to have those punchlines.
Yeah.
Those like I just did the industry room and
you said it went well, right? That's awesome, dude.
Went really well.
Yeah, it's a fun room.
Yeah, the first time. This is my second time doing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I've only done it once. Yeah.
I get the feedback tomorrow.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to
it.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of that is just like premise punch because you kind of have to be. But it is when you get more time, it's fun to just draw. It's a little bit. It's ideally where we all want to get is we just want to tell stories, don't we?
Yeah, we just want to talk about ourselves.
Yeah,
like, that's what everyone wants. Yeah, you know.
But it's so restricting in 5 minutes, even on a mic. It's
It's so funny. I took a class in New York when I started comedy, and it was the teacher was saying like 5 minutes is so much harder than 10.
Yeah.
Like so much harder where it seems counterintuitive, but like for a new comic, new-ish, 8 minutes is like a sweet spot.
Yeah.
You know, because you don't need to rush through stuff. You can kind of whatever. Now, depending on how new you are, having 8 minutes of solid material is pretty hard.
Yeah.
Of like solid material.
But also some material is better. Like I've got a 6 minute monologue, which you've kind of heard some of it. It's about like getting married and a few things about that. It's not a monologue.
Is this with the courthouse?
Yeah, yeah.
I really
Courthouse,
like that jab in there.
the hostage tape. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
all that.
I do like that
That's
bit.
kind of like a 6-minute bit. But if I get, it's funnier. That bit works so much funnier when I've done a few jokes prior to win the crowd over.
Yep.
And when they laugh, when I've got them, then they
Yeah.
fucking laugh the whole way through, and it's
Right.
great. But to go straight into that bit, it's not as funny. So it's interesting. That's
Yeah.
why more time is better. You can use it to your advantage, and like, yeah, I 5 minutes. If someone asked me to do a show, like I would never do a bringer show for 5 minutes now. Go fuck yourself. I wouldn't. But like luckily most shows I'm doing now are like 8 minutes, 10 minutes, which is awesome. But yeah, it is hard. A less amount of time is definitely harder.
And I naturally speak quickly, especially when I'm nervous. And obviously,
I swear.
Oh, do you swear?
When I'm nervous, it's something that it's like that's my tick.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which I have to try and.
I swear regularly a lot. So my nervous tick is like a little chuckle. It's so bad. You probably heard it.
Yeah.
It's like when a joke or a jab doesn't get a laugh, I go and I listen to it. And I'm like, fuck, David. Ugh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like pinch myself every time I hear it. Every time I like listen back to kind of like get it out of my fucking system, dude. My dad used to do that. My dad, when he was on a diet, he used to like reach for a cookie or something on the table, and then he'd take his other hand and smack it. He was like schizophrenic. It's like, no, don't do that. I got to do that with my tips. But yeah, no, 5 minutes is tough.
Yeah.
5 minutes, because then like you rush through things. For me, it's like all the feedback I always get. I think I got this from Industry Room. I got this from other bookers, from just my friends of like, slow down.
Yep.
And I realize now it's because when I'm preparing for an important 5 minutes, an audition, someone important is going to see me, whatever. I try to pack in as many jokes as possible, because I'm like, oh, well, it's more jokes, more laughs. It shows the booker, whoever I'm performing for, that I've got range, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, actually, if you slow it down, you may have fewer actual jokes. Yeah. But people don't watch comedy and say, oh, they had X many jokes. No. They'd watch comedy and just see how much they enjoy it.
I've picked up on that. I like the Industry Room 5 minutes that I did this time round. It was so much better, but I've slowed everything down. My holds are longer. Also, that's another thing that people don't realize is let the audience laugh.
Oh, me too.
Just don't cut the punch. Just hold and sit in there. So many people that are new to comedy just keep ripping through. You can't. Yeah. That's why slowing down is good, because you're just sitting in it a little bit more.
That's one of the hardest things to internalize for me, and for a lot of people, is like silence is good.
Yeah.
Like, well, A, hold for the laughs, and B, even if it's not a laugh, it's like if it's silent, that doesn't mean that they hit you. That means that they are excited to hear what you've got left.
Exactly.
The worst is when it's like just table chatter. Then they're not interested in you. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if your next joke's funny. Yeah. But I remember I did a comedy festival in Ithaca in September. Finger Lakes Festival. I don't know. It was fun. Apply next year. It's a good time.
I will.
And I remember I was up there, and it was like, and I actually did well on both my sets. One of them was like in a bar downstairs. It was a great venue for comedy. Cool. It was like, there's like a dingy looking bar. It was like kind of Greenwich Village Comedy Club.
Cool.
I love
that.
The vibe.
I love that room. Yeah.
But it was a bar. It was a lot of fun. And I remember thinking like, okay, my first jokes up top really hit. And so I kind of had them in the palm of my hand for the rest of it. But later in the set, I remember I was telling a long story. One of my older jokes that it's like a 2-minute bit. When I started, I had these long jokes with a bunch of jabs. I don't know. Anyway, and there was a point during that when I was like explaining kind of the setup, and everybody was pitch black in this bar, and I felt awesome. I felt like on top of the world, because I was like, everybody was like, like people are paying attention. Yeah. And then it's just about your material being good. Mm-hmm. So it's like, silence. Like I was like, the best feeling of a set is like getting huge laughs, of course, but a close second is people like silently paying attention. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. And I love that. Like, just knowing when you're up there, like one thing now that I'm getting better, is just starting to be a bit more aware of the audience because you're not when you start out, you're not aware of the audience. You don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Or you are, and you're just petrified of them.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah,
me too.
But if you can tell that people are paying attention, like they are looking at you, then that's just a win in itself.
Yeah.
You know, they want to hear what you have to say. So
Yeah.
people can still be entertained and not laugh. Obviously, the goal is to make them laugh. But in between the laughs, they can still be enjoying the act, which is...
It's so funny. Yeah, I saw, again, another comic podcast, like Pros. Not this fucking bullshit. We're doing here. Fucking good comics.
Like a real good podcast.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of these good comics out there. But I was on their podcast. I'm kind of losing my train of thought right now. What were you just talking about?
Silence, like people paying attention.
Yeah. Of like people paying attention. Of just like if people are just like staring at you, that's you've kind of got them already, because it's so easy to just like lose the crowd with either a lack of confidence or stage demeanor or like some nervous jitter or something like that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Dude, oh good.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, it's no drama.
It's not a good thing for a comedian.
Dude, we're all retarded. So whereabouts in New York do you live?
I'm in Bed-Stuy.
Where's that?
Bed-Stuy is it's like North Brooklyn, like near, like, you know, Prospect Park set. It's like northeast of Prospect Park a little bit. It's a huge neighborhood.
Okay.
So it's like, it's so funny. It's like real estate agents split up the city into like the tiniest neighborhoods and invent new neighborhoods, you know? And like Bed-Stuy is like the size of like a small city. It's geographically huge. So I'm like West Bed-Stuy near Clinton Hill.
Yeah.
It's like a 45 maybe minute walk to downtown Brooklyn.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
No.
Yeah, I'm straight east. I'm off the G train.
What mics do you generally hit? Like, what's your routine?
I do a lot of Buddha stuff just because I host for them and I get other mics for them for free.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Why not? Yeah. We talked about it a lot. I am a total Black Cat disciple. Like I fucking love Black Cat.
I think it's probably the best mic in the city.
It's my favorite one.
Yeah.
And for a number of reasons. No small part, just the venue's cool.
Yeah.
It's just laid back in there.
Yeah.
Even when the vibes are bad, it's just we're laying back. And there's usually at least a couple really, really, really funny comics.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing that I tell my friends of like, we're pursuing this art form, if you want to call it an art form. You know,
definitely
I'm not being prestigious, but you know, whatever. But yeah, I believe it is too. But like we're pursuing this one, which is, you know, a struggle. You know, you're going to bomb. You're going to get your teeth knocked in, especially early on. I fucking podcast with Sam Morril and Mark Normand were just talking about. It's such an interesting art form because it's the hardest is when you start. It gets easier as it goes on. Whereas most things that you work at, it's like, okay, get your feet wet. Okay, all right, good. And then it gets really, you know, acting, singing, music. Like, it gets really hard to go from, like, good to really good.
Yeah.
And in comedy, the hardest part emotionally is when you just start.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get fucking bombed.
Yeah.
You're going to see a bunch of comics that you respect look at you in open mic and be like, whatever. And then you're, like, you're going to write, and 90% of your jokes are going to be nothing. But then, ideally, it gets easier. But it I don't know. It's a funny thing that we like. And it's also one of those things that, like, you need to practice in public. You know, if you want to get good at basketball, you could just go to a gym alone and bomb, right? You could just, like, you could be terrible at basketball in private and no one's judging you.
Yeah, yeah.
We have to learn and practice in public where everyone's like, who the fuck is this person?
I know. It's such a fucking crazy thing. There's really nothing else like it. I don't know anything else like it.
No, I mean, I said this to you as I started of like, man, I can't believe it didn't bite me or like bite me in a good way.
Yeah.
Latch on the earlier times, you know, when I was 20 and I did it at college, or when I was 25 and did it in San Francisco. I'm like, oh, why not? But for some reason, it didn't hit me until 33, and not mad about it.
No.
Not mad about it.
So you've done a few festivals.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny, dude. You hear festival and like, for me, when I hear festival, I'm like, oh, they're all huge pro fucking, I Just for Laughs or Edinburgh or something. And there's a million like ranking, smaller festivals that I was like, all right, I'll send in a tape, and then I got accepted, and I'm like, okay. So like, I don't know, I did the Laughing Buddha Festival,
Oh, can we?
it's in New York.
There's a Laughing Buddha Festival now that we can apply for, isn't there?
Yeah. Should submit it in.
I will.
But so there's that. People win. Eric Walsh won last year. He's hilarious.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
He got money from it. Second, third, he got money. I know Buddha's got a reputation, whatever. But hey, why not? I did that last year. The ones out of. Oh, I did one. Oh my God, I did one when I just started in January of last year, like a year ago. This was the funny. So I think it was the first one ever. They called it the Hudson County Comedy Festival. It was in Peekskill. I don't know. I took a Metro North up in the cold and snow, and it was just at this bar, or this restaurant with a stage kind of looking thing. It was actually a pretty cool venue, but it was just a restaurant. Like people who lived in town just went there for dinner. They did not know there was comedy going on. You know what I mean? When we all went up and we all got 3 minutes.
What?
And so I went up an hour and a half in the train, got 3 minutes. Everybody was talking over me because it was 11:30 at night. People were drunk. And then so much so that somebody in the crowd turned around and was like, shut the fuck up. And I was like, yeah, guys, shut up. And I was like, all right, well, not getting back for the finals of this, And then somehow I did, I think because I felt bad for me.
3 minutes though?
Yeah.
Well,
so it's
sucks.
You better do it.
You got to have a tight 3 minutes.
Yeah, which I did not have.
Yeah, well, you only just started.
3 months into comedy, to say the fucking least.
Yeah.
And then they invited me back, and I did 5. But it was funny. I talked about. I was like, all right, I clocked in about 7 hours of travel time for 8 minutes over the weekend.
Yeah, wow. It is so inefficient.
No, oh yeah, but it was also kind of fun. Yeah, but it was then I did Ithaca.
Yeah.
In New York. That was really fun. That was also again, not that this is a commentary on you or me or anything, but they will let a lot of people in.
Yeah.
But it was cool. You met some people. Yeah, some good shows, some bad shows. It was a little more organized than the other one.
And they're not bringers, are they? Festivals?
No. Oh God, no. A festival bringer is that doesn't mean anything because usually at a festival people are traveling somewhere.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I've been obviously rejected from a million festivals. Usually those are the ones that are, bigger and you're traveling somewhere. So I get rejected all the time. But whatever, send it in. And then I just got back from Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah, you were saying that.
Yeah, that which is run by some local comic up there. It was in the back of a distillery in the middle of a tiny city. We actually got a lot of people there, considering, but it was 30-person crowd, and they were fun, and they gave us a lot of time. I did 13 minutes, which is probably the most time I've ever done straight.
Right.
And then 7 minutes the next night. It was hung out with some people.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're just fun to get out of the city, road trip with some friends in the comedy scene. Yeah.
And how are you finding the festivals? So for anyone else that wants to do them,
a lot of it's word of mouth about the comics.
Okay.
I know Batslava has a list online. Other people have made lists here and there. To be honest, I don't have the best system. I usually have to ask around. There's a couple other comics that I ask around for, and they're like, "Hey, I just applied to this. You guys should apply too." Stuff like that. It is. It's fun though, also because a lot of the festivals are competitions, but a lot of them aren't. Some of them are just showcases. It's kind of no pressure. It's not no pressure, but you go up and it's a lot of the just hanging out. They say networking, but networking with comics sounds so professional. It's just fucking comics drinking
just
and hanging out.
Yeah,
just shooting the shit, dude. It's like this. But it's a good time. I mean, I think that's where my mind drifted earlier. What I was trying to say of all the art forms, I am glad I'm doing comedy because as difficult as it is emotionally, like we just talked about, you have to practice in public. You have to get your teeth knocked in. It's harder when you start out. At the end of the day, if I go up at an open mic and I bomb, I can sit back down and I'm like, oh, that fucking blew. But then I get to watch my friends go up. And at the end of the day, if they make me laugh, then it's like, oh, what happened tonight? I heard some funny jokes and I laughed.
Yeah.
It's better than, I don't know, there's open mics for singing or something like that, which it's nice listening to someone sing really well, but it's not as much fun as going to a mic and hearing oh, that's a great joke.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. At the end of the day, we just get to laugh.
Yeah.
As long as, you can compartmentalize how much you just bombed and just be like,
yeah.
all right, I'll work on that in a minute. Let me watch some people, whatever.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's kind of fun.
No,
in
it's
that
the
sense,
best.
It
is the best.
Like not only just you doing it, but just like, all right, I spend my time listening to jokes.
Yeah.
Most of the time in an open mic, you're not performing.
No.
Right? Like 80% of the time, you're sitting there waiting. And a lot of people at open mics don't pay attention. They're just waiting for your turn, which is totally fine. No judgment. I do that sometimes too. But if you listen, at the end of the day, you're kind of at a comedy show.
Yeah.
You're just at a comedy show that you also get the chance to go up on.
Yeah.
I love comedy shows, right?
Yeah,
Like I just
too.
get to sit back and laugh.
I think that's something that I'm starting to be better at now.
And you could learn from those people too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just like, all right, just try and be present. Just try and enjoy.
Yeah.
Just try and enjoy this for what it is.
Yeah. And
it is easy to sit there and be in your own head and not pay attention, but it's better when you are paying attention.
And I don't judge those people either. Like I get it. Or a lot of the people who leave like right after, their set. I do that too. I'm not judging it.
Yeah.
But that's like, especially when I host a mic, I try to pay attention because like mics, we're all there to bomb.
Yeah.
We're all there to and it's brutal. And so someone could go up who's their first or second time doing it, or maybe it's not. Maybe they've been doing it 6 or 7 years, but they're trying brand new shit that bombs. But at least you have an attentive audience who can give you legitimate feedback. So I try to make it more fun because I don't know. I've heard some pro comics say that too, which I find kind of interesting. Of like, if you're thinking about doing comedy, if you've thought, I tell it to my friends, if you thought about it for more than 5 minutes in your life, just do it once.
Yeah.
You never know.
I think everyone should try it once.
I think
Just once.
Well, I don't know, dude. I have friends who like they just have no interest in ever getting on stage, and I'm like, good for you.
Yeah.
But if like there's some friends who I think are very funny, and you could tell like they're like, I thought about it a couple years ago, and I'm like, oh, you thought about it? Do it.
Yeah.
The worst that can happen is you bomb.
Yeah.
And then you say, all right, not for me. That's the worst that can happen.
Yeah.
The best that can happen is a whole lot, But yeah, it's very funny. So I like there's comics who say like, if you're about to do your first open mic, bring your friends. Because I thought it was Nikki Glazer who said this on a podcast, and I never heard anyone else say it, of like, bring your friends, because if you go to an open mic and there's no one there that you trust or know, you're probably going to bomb. Even if your friends are there, you're probably going to bomb. But it's going to be worse.
At least you got support.
At least you got some support.
Yeah.
But it's probably going to be worse. And I think she was like, we lose a lot of comics their first open mic. They're just like, we don't know what that person could have become.
Yeah.
If they just had just enough support to get them over the first week or the first 2 weeks or the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Which like, I didn't do that and bring friends. And luckily I was still caught in this time around. But there is something to be said for that of like, yeah, you're not going to be good right away. It's just not going to happen. But maybe if you have friends for the first one or something, it was like, So I try to be attentive at my open mics for those people, you know? Because it's like, you don't want to turn people away. They could end up in 20 years being some of the best guys,
Yeah.
We don't want to deprive people of good comedy.
Yeah, we don't. Well, Dave, we got to wrap this up. Tell everyone your socials.
Oh, so funny because I was like, I need to change my social because people think my name is wrong now. So my socials is at Davis the Wavis. It's at Davis _the_Wavis. WAVIS.
I'll have it on the notes as well.
Yeah. And people think that my name is Davis. Like everyone is like, all right, like
Yeah.
when you sign up for mics like on Instagram or something, they're like, give it up for Davis Wavis. What a name. And I'm like, oh, it's not my name. But David Weissglass is a funky name, and Davis the Wavis was just like a stupid like joke that I've been like before I did comedy. I made my handle that.
Yeah.
What's funny, real quick, I know we're wrapping up, is my middle name is Nathan. And part of the reason my parents gave me the middle name Nathan is because David Nathan is easy to pronounce. Doesn't sound as Jewish. It's like, it's like, all right, it's like a built-in stage name if you wanted to take it. I just
love it.
Yeah, but I'm also a stage. I don't know. I'm a year and a half in. We'll
Yeah.
sort that out. But anyway,
Future problems.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Davis the Wavis, appreciate it, dude.
Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
It's been so good to have you on. Let's do this again.
It's such a shame the pod's ending, but I mean, you know, we'll just carry on the conversation at the next mic.
We will. See you on the next one, guys.
Peace.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of Going After It with Cam Bird. Produced by Cam Bird. Podcast edited by Calpit. Music by Brian Rigby. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And if you can, get after it.